Welcome back to Beyond the Nexus, your source for all things Heroes eSports.
This week we have eSports coverage, a bit of discussion when it comes to the minion changes, and what to look out for next week.
That's right, we have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. We're starting off this week in Heroes with Crescendo and High Score, who qualified for the first North American Regional. They'll be joined by Gale Force Esports and Team Naventic, who automatically qualified by attending the Summer Global Championship. But who the heck are these new teams?
Well, to start out, we have King Caffeine and K1 Pro from Cloud9, Glaurung from Brainpower. From TNC, you have Prismaticism and APM, whose name was formerly Matre. But I think the most important thing when it comes to looking at this roster is the hype behind them, right? We have 2 world champions on a roster, and just Cloud9 playing with new players is awesome.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hype, and that's largely because it is the first time we're seeing some of the members of Cloud9 compete since the team disbanded. I think a lot of North American fans had high hopes for the team going into last weekend.
And I think that's very reasonable. North America has kind of struggled when it comes to the strength in our rosters for some time, and so now having a team that has so much potential is just something that we've really needed for some time.
One thing I really enjoyed watching from Crescendo is how well they can work together in pairs. Obviously, King Caffeine and K1 Pro are going to have a lot of synergy, and that's same with APM and Prismaticism, simply because those duos have been playing together for so long. But even King Caffeine and Glaurung had a lot of synergy and combo potential on the front line. Did anything impress you?
For me, it was kind of this 4-1 style of play they almost seemed to trademark during the tournament. They would always have one person off just soaking and split pushing into a lane, while they have 4 men grouped very heavily as a death ball, getting good plays and just solid skirmishing overall. But I was very fearful when I heard that this roster specifically was going to be forming just when it came to their strategic diversity.
I mean, their play wasn't perfect either. There were some times that Glaurung got caught out tunnel visioning, and in the one game they lost, you could see some panic in their play. But they were able to qualify, as were High Score. Yeah,
and so High Score is this kind of like spawn that happened after the roster apocalypse here in North America, where we have 3 members from Brainpower, McIntyre over from Naventic, and then Jason from Panda Global. And the coolest thing about them is really their creativity. It's kind of always existed with that Brainpower-esque style of play, but then even unique talent choices this weekend, and then even compositions. Nova came out to play for the first time in almost forever in Heroes competitive play, and it's just really awesome to see this mixture happen now with these players.
I think we call that the Fae factor.
Yeah.
But really it is. It's a product of their flexibility. McIntyre has long been role swapping during his time on Team Naventic, and both Faye and Jason have large hero pools they can draw from when they're making compositions.
Yeah, but one thing we also have to keep in mind is that they weren't overly dominant in all of their games, right? There were some situations where their opponents were able to get a pretty solid advantage over them. The most important thing for them, and that they did very well, is they kept their composure at all points and always punished overzealous play.
I agree. They didn't quite have the same amount of polish that Crescendo did, but they definitely have the potential. Yes, they're still working on their synergies, so there were some awkward heroics or even team fights, but I'm still expecting a very strong showing from this team at Regionals.
But recently there was a very big patch that just hit Heroes of the Storm, and it affected directly how the minions work. So we're going to dive deeper into that in this week's XP Soak.
Welcome to XP Soak, where we give you tips and tricks so you guys at home can learn to play like the pros.
In the most recent balance patch, minions were heavily adjusted. They'll now do double the bonus damage to structures that they once did.
That's right. They already did 100% bonus damage to structures, and this patch increased that to 200, which is a net gain of 50% damage overall.
Catapults were also adjusted, but not their damage. They were given increased range. And what this means is now while sieging onto your core, they're no longer going to stand into the minion wave like they once would and take free splash damage from the core.
They also now fixate on a target until they die. They won't do this with heroes, but if they latch onto your core, you can bet they are going nowhere until they're taken out.
So what does this mean for the professional Heroes of the Storm scene? I think the first thing that we can expect to see is drastic difference in decision making when we look at very big maps. For instance, on Garden of Terror or Cursed Hollow.
For drafting, since specialists are already such dominant wave clearers, this patch only accents what they bring to a composition. It's likely going to result in a rise of the specialist, especially popular ones like Sylvanas and Zul, but potentially even lesser played ones like Asmodan.
And heroes that have globals that were already prevalent in the meta are just going to get better. Their ability to push and soak away from the rest of the team, escort those stronger minions into the front gates and forts, and then teleport during a skirmish or contesting a map objective is now great. One hero that comes to my mind when I talk about this is already Brightwing. Not only because of the adjustments to her healing, but then also because Polymorph is no longer directly affected by Relentless. And then we may even see Dahaka pop out of whatever shrub he's been hiding in for some time.
Additionally, wave clear is even more important for a composition, but it is less taxing overall because of the regen globe changes. They'll give you more health and mana if, of course, you manage to pick them up.
And the 4-1 strategy that we've seen for some time in the early game of Heroes of the Storm is just gotten better. You keep one person in a side lane and then soak and clear minions as fast as you can with a 4-man group. Then, efficiently draining the turrets like this strategy does is only going to allow those stronger minions to siege up and to have free reign on your front gates.
With so much change with this patch, we'll be keeping an eye on how these changes affect the professional heroes scene in the coming weeks. Up next is what to watch for this week's esports action. For what to watch this week, Dreamhack Valencia has concluded. But if you missed any of the games, you can find them all on the Dreamhack Heroes Twitch channel.
Next week, we'll be talking more about some of the big plays that happened in Valencia and about the first team to qualify for BlizzCon.
The Power League tournament is also going on right now. Check out Wolf's Twitch channel for an English cast of some awesome Korean Heroes matches.
And for North America this Sunday, we're going to have the second qualifier where 2 teams are going to be able to make it onto Burbank. But with the performance last week of Vox Nihili, they might be the new dark horse of North America.
On the flip side, though, fan favorites Astral Authority and Murloc Geniuses both struggled with their newfound rosters. I guess we'll see if they can get it together in time to qualify.
But that's going to be it for us here this week. Make sure to tune in this Sunday to see which 2 teams make it onto Burbank. We'll see you guys next week.